Hi, my dear listeners. Once again, this is retired Colonel Samsudeen Sarr, former commander of the Gambian National Army. Been back again today on this Wednesday, the 8th of November 2023. Once again, I am on my program of reading my book, Testimony of the Gambian Military Officer and a Diplomat. And today, I'll be reading chapter 15, titled Released and Reinstated Back to the Army. About a month before my release, a contingent of armed guards from the prison accompanied me to Fajara Barracks for my long-awaited encounter with the Investigative Commission. The panel was chaired by a Nigerian judge, whose name I couldn't remember, but had been involved in the Nigerian government's technical support to the Gambia, started since our independence in 1965. The support initially given to the PPP government continued under the AFPRC government despite their issues with the Nigerian Army Training Assistant Group. The panel included the individuals I had been informed by my fellow detainees before me of those who constituted the board. Among them were my uncle, Imam Dudu Drame of Ladrekunda Mosque, the Gambia's Solicitor General, one Mr. Mambore, and two senior police officers. I recounted my role in the coup from its inception to my arrest and detention, just as they had requested. My narrative was straightforward and uncomplicated. It appeared that most of the panel members were taken aback by my account, considering the false narratives they had heard about the alleged serious crimes I had supposedly committed, such as sabotage and a counter-coup attempt. One police officer, Mr. Jara Bande, one of the senior police officers on the panel, asked me to elaborate on the confrontation I had with, as he put it, His Excellency Chairman Haja Jane at the State House on the evening of the coup d'etat. Is it accurate that on the first day of the coup d'etat, you challenged the authority of His Excellency Chairman Haja Jane at the State House? Could you provide an explanation of what your motive was for challenging him? I never challenged him per se, I replied. Moreover, I continued, in that particular moment, there was no chairman or designated leader yet. The events of that day were already documented in the statement I had given to the police investigation team that had visited the prison in September. Then finally, the Nigerian judge posed an intriguing question, whether the government could trust me if I were to be released and reinstated into the army. I responded affirmatively, knowing better than to state otherwise. Are you harboring sentiment or resentment due to your prolonged detention? He inquired. No, sir, I responded. Will you remain loyal to Chairman Jane? Of course, I will. Your cooperation is greatly appreciated, Mr. Sarr, he concluded. My uncle, Imam Dudrame, displayed genuine sympathy. It was evident from his expressions that he found our senseless detention and the ineffective legal panel frustrating. While being driven back to the police headquarters, to the prisons after my interview, I couldn't but acknowledge that apart from Captain Charen, Major Jonga, and RSM Seka, I was among the last detainees to face the panel. I therefore concluded that I would also probably be the last to leave the jail Surprisingly, on the 9th of May 1995, around 9 a.m., the prison guards began the process of releasing me. I was escorted out of the yard, stepping into newfound freedom alongside a small group of fellow detainees. Among us was Major Sute Banja, a man who had long distanced himself from any connection with President Jawla, despite once referring to him as uncle. The major now fervently denied any blood ties to the overthrown leader, warning other detainees not to associate him in any way with the deposed Gambian president. His anger towards the former president was more evident when the AFPRC government exposed the secretive oil deal that the PPP government had been benefiting from, courtesy of the Nigerian government since 1989. From within the confines of our jail cells, Major Banja condemned President Jawla for his perceived greed and corruption. The Gambian people, largely unaware of how their country had weathered the storm of an economic blockade imposed by Senegal. This blockade followed Senegal's abrupt withdrawal from the Senegambia Confederation in 1989, leaving the Gambia isolated and economically challenged. Before the bilateral rupture, the Gambia had earned a reputation as the sub-region supermarket, attracting neighboring states with its low import tariffs and affordable merchandise in Banjul. Even Senegalese entrepreneurs and ordinary citizens took advantage of the situation, smuggling goods across the porous borders, evading their own customs officials and regulations. This thriving trade had kept the Gambia's economy relatively healthier than those of its neighbors, including Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Mali, and Mauritania. The Senegalese government had, over the 7 years of the Senegambia Confederation, tolerated the commerce, as both nations had been working towards a future federation. However, when the confederation process abruptly collapsed in September 1989, Senegal closed its borders to all cross-border trade involving the Gambia. With Senegal enveloping the Gambia on all its land borders, save for the narrow stretch of the river Gambia that led to the Atlantic Ocean, the economic stranglehold was perceived by experts as a crippling blow to the Gambia's economy. Senegal had also expected the Gambia to economically suffer and beg for their assistance. But to everyone's surprise, the country managed to defy the threats and survive. Little did anyone know that a covert lifeline had been extended by the Nigerian government, orchestrated by General Ibrahim Babangida, then the president of Nigeria, who regularly dispatched generous supply of crude oil to aid the Gambia in overcoming its financial turmoil. This discreet yet crucial aid came in the form of barrels of crude oil, a benevolent gesture from Nigeria. But operating in secrecy, the PPP government engaged the services of a British government or British company to facilitate the transport of the oil from Nigeria. The company sold the oil on the global market, with the proceeds discreetly funneled into a clandestine foreign bank account accessible to only a select few within the PPP government. However, the veil of secrecy was eventually lifted when an investigative commission established by the AFPRC government delved into the financial undertakings of the PPP administration. The commission unearthed the hidden oil saga, a covert deal that had remained concealed from the Gambian population for astonishing 5-year period. This discovery, dubbed the oil saga, bore a major political weight, serving as a powerful tool for the junta to bolster its rationale for overthrowing the PPP government. Since then, Major Banja, the former Presidential Guard commander, who used to boast of being President Jawla's blood nephew, despises anyone reminding him about his uncle. He will swear, bearing no relationship with the former president. So in addition to Major Sute Banja, Captain Demba Charen was also released from detention with me that same day. The circumstances surrounding my release added to my persistent puzzle. Though we were appointed ministers, arrested and detained together, Captain Hamad Charen and I did not experience identical fates. However, my perception of Captain Hamad Charen shifted when I discovered that he had foreknowledge into the whole planning of the coup by the junior officers to topple the PPP government. In other words, unlike my mistaken belief that he, like me, had been an unwitting pawn, it became clear that Captain Hamad Charen was privy to the conspiracy's detail. In the last days of her detention, Captain Demba Charen revealed to me how some of the coup plotters approached Captain Hamad Charen and several senior officers, most of them at Yundum Barracks, to join them in their quest to oust the government. But after Hamad first gave them his words of support, he later withdrew his commitment when junior officers informed him that the hierarchy of leadership in the post-coup d'etat appointments will not be determined by ranks or seniority. Amazingly, when I asked the captain about the veracity of the allegations, he admitted that weeks before the coup, he was approached by the junior officers to join them in the July operation. He confirmed that he initially agreed to join them, but his support wavered when they informed him that ranks will not determine the appointment of leaders after the coup, exactly in the way Captain Demba Charen explained the story. Consequently, he decided to withdraw his involvement in the plan. From that point on, he revealed that he ceased to follow the developments that ensued. When I questioned about his lack of interest in monitoring the unfolding events, he attributed it to his belief that the coup will not succeed. This prompted me to ask the most pressing question that had been on my mind. Captain, did you actually discuss a counter-coup scheme with other officers after the success of the young officers' coup? He met my gaze directly and confirmed, yes, but I never discussed it with any seriousness, he quickly added. I pressed further, asking, who did you share this with? He replied, I can't recall the exact individuals, but I believe I mentioned it to the bandmaster and a few other officers. Ironically, the bandmaster had risen to the position of commissioner while he was incarcerated with an uncertain fate. My frustration with the captain was evident, though he seemed indifferent to my feelings. The revelation from Charen that day was truly remarkable. It provided the logical closure I had been seeking regarding the motive behind our detention. Finally, I understood why Samate had nearly taken Charen's life that night of the infamous 6 September 1994 torture incident, what had spared me from such brutality. It was also no surprise that Captain Demba Charen, Major Sute Banja, and I were released while my fellow co-minister remained in custody. As we exited, Little did we know that we were being released. The sight of Colonel Bakari Jara, the Gambia Army commander, waiting outside was unexpected. He instructed us to board the waiting vehicles and were driven directly to the State House in Banjul. Inside the State House, Colonel Jara led us to the main conference room on the upper floor of the Defense Ministry building. The familiar setting of the vast red carpet room brought back memories of my time as a staff officer. Yet, even as I entered, I couldn't shake the feeling of still being confined. Taking our seats around the long table at the center of the room, Major Sute Banya, Captain Demba Charen and I faced the entrance. Captain Jara, Commander Jara, sat at the table's edge. Directly across from us were 3 empty seats reserved for the impending meeting. Lance Corporal Bachao, formerly a GNA driver and now the infamous bodyguard for Samate, was the first to enter, announcing the arrival of the defense minister, armed with a new Chinese M203 rifle and grenade launcher. Bach's presence was imposing. Following him, Samate strode in, sporting dark glasses and donning full combat fatigue uniform. His imposing figure had always been complemented by a military uniform. Captain Jao and Captain Banya, Captain Jao and Captain Baja trailed behind Samate. Commander Jara promptly rose, saluted them, and called for everyone to stand as the junior officers took their seats with minimal emotion displayed. As we settled back into our seats, Samate motioned for us to relax before launching into a warning speech he had prepared. Before explaining your current situation, he began, I want to make one thing absolutely clear. Our government, led by His Excellency Chairman Haja J.J. Ejane, is firmly in power and will remain so. Nothing can alter this reality. After placing our lives on the line under the steadfast leadership of His Excellency Haja Jane, it should be understood that no force could deter our determination to rebuild this nation like never before, he declared, punctuating his point with a forceful strike upon the table. Perhaps you have heard the tale of Lieutenant Sekuba Barry's ill-fated challenge against the authority of our reverend leader, Chairman Haja J.J.A. Jane. He continued, his voice edged with warning. Let it be known, anyone who dares tread the same path shall meet the same fate as Lieutenant Barry. Our vigilant guards stand poised to swiftly eliminate any threat, anytime, anywhere. The surreal experience of listening to the young officer addressing us as if we were dangerous criminals on conditional release lingered like a dream. His incessant repetition of Jane's name, coupled with the excessive reverence he exhibited for the chairman, gnawed at me. In my assessment, his behavior seemed to be a manifestation of the madness he had displayed during our incarceration. I remain unconvinced of Samate's genuine loyalty to Jane. It was my belief that he was a man of dubious character, shrewd, deceptive, and lethally ambitious in his quest for power. I speculated that Samate's outward shown of loyalty to Chairman Jane was a fakir, a survival strategy born out of Jane's mastery of their treacherous game. I surmised that Jane had somehow outwitted Samate in their power struggle Together, they had eliminated figures like Singate and Topper, and it was only a matter of time before Samate too would be discarded when his utility waned. Samate held the floor for approximately 10 minutes before extending the spotlight to Captain Jao. Jao's address carried a more polished tone, and he primarily expressed his disappointment in our lack of cooperation with the government's revolutionary efforts. Having been in America at the time of the coup, Jao's understanding appeared distorted, as if he had been fed misinformations. Alternatively, he might have simply been functioning as the mouthpiece of a dysfunctional government plagued by numerous challenges. Ultimately, he will abandon the government and seek refuge in the United States of America. Samate's insipid presentation remained etched in my memory as a crucial detail. Similarly, when the opportunity arose for Captain Baja, the Interior Minister, who replaced Topper, to speak, he gracefully declined, a decision that carried understandable reasoning given his subordinate relationship with Sute Banja from their service in Chawla's presidential guard. Commander Jara, too, chose silence when his turn to speak arrived. As the council members wrapped up their remarks and extended an invitation for questions, none of us said a word. The haze of uncertainty still cloaked our official status. Whether we had truly been released from detention remained undisclosed. In my anticipation, I somehow expected Chairman Janet to step forward and address us. Yet, as the trio of council members exited the room, Commander Jara guided us down to the army headquarters. It was there, in that very moment, that Captain Costa delivered the liberating news. Our freedom was unconditional. The path ahead crystallized as directives were outlined. 2 weeks of respite awaited us, after which Major Sute Banja would report to the police headquarters, reassigned with immediate effect. Captain Demba Charen, an engineering officer, found himself retired from the Gambia Armed Forces, redirected to serve at the Gambia Technical Services Department, his shift dictated by the perceived demand for his expertise. As for me, a new chapter awaited. In a fortnight, my duties will commence at the Army headquarters, this time as a senior staff officer. Compensation for our lost wages, allowances, and salaries during my detention was assured. From Captain David Costa's office, I reached out to my wife amid her work at the Banjul pharmacy. She had stood firm during my arduous 10-month ordeal. Alongside my sister, Lika, she had dutifully ensured a steady stream of essential provisions, with insect repellent cream emerging as a prized asset, shielding me from the torment of mosquito bites and malaria. Her voice carried a mix of astonishment and jubilation as she absorbed my location, the Army headquarters in Banjul. News of my freedom provoked an outburst of elation. Inquiring about the well-being of our children, her response was a reassuring affirmation of their good health. I am finally free, and I am on my way home, I proclaimed, bringing our conversation to a heartfelt close. I dialed my mother's house phone number and informed her of my imminent visit. Within about 20 minutes, the military vehicle dropped me off at her residence in Serekunda, where a throng of neighbors and relatives had gathered, eagerly awaiting my arrival. Word of my release had already spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of many before I even arrived. Most of those who had come were driven by curiosity, seeking confirmation of my liberation from detention. Tears streamed down my mother's face, a manifestation of overwhelming joy rather than anything else. Amidst her tears, she proudly proclaimed to everyone present that she had always known my innocence, vehemently countering the falsehoods that had been spread about my alleged attempt on Chairman Jane's life, thwarted only by the powerful judges he had. She handed me over. He handed me down. Oh, hold on. She handed me a collection of the mystical objects before my departure to my wife's residence. Her insistence was persistent, urging me, as she always did, to show greater faith and reverence for the traditional beliefs that she believed played a role in my past misfortunes. I reluctantly accepted the leather-covered belts, strings, and bottles filled with spiritual water saffron, which I was expected to use for the next 3 days during my cleansing birth. However, once I was out of her house, I promptly discarded the items. I knew in my heart that I was innocent, and there was no need to carry these symbolic tokens any longer. In retrospect, I felt that perhaps my detention during the initial tumultuous months of the coup had been a divine shield, sparing me from more dire circumstances and allowing me to gradually understand the true nature of the forces at play. I returned home, a mix of confusion and excitement stirring within me. While I was incarcerated, I had harbored intentions of leaving the country with my family, a response to the prevailing violence under the new government. I had anticipated being retired from the service like my fellow captains, like in the case of Captain Sani and the others. My plan was to seek refuge in a safer nation, shielded from the volatile political landscape. My ultimate concern was to avoid being ensnared in a lethal power struggle, a fate I was unwilling to subject my wife and young children to endure. Yet, I was equally hesitant about the prospect of beginning a new life in a foreign land where my immigration status might subject me to constant scrutiny, mistrust, and all the difficulties that went with migrating to a foreign land. Nevertheless, my conviction remains steadfast that if I were to ever embark on such a journey to a foreign country, America will be my destination. I thank you very much for patience, giving me your time to listen to chapter 15. That ends chapter 15. Till next time, you guys